Hello, welcome back to another edition of Gary's Garage. Today we're going to finish the speakers. And when I say finish, I mean finish all the way through. Um, so here they are. They're all in perfectly good health. They've been sanded, they've been oiled, they've been allowed to sit for about 4 days. And we are ready to put on our final coat. We're going to use this Watco Danish oil. It's basically a one-step finish, and it's a wipe-on, kind of a mixture of polyurethane and oil, and it creates a nice surface, final finished surface. So, as you can see, the speakers themselves are gorgeous, and they are ready to be finished. Once I'm done with this, we'll of course let it dry, come back, install the different speaker components. I'll go through all that. And then they're basically ready to go. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in a bit. Okay, so we're ready to put on a coat. Basically, you're gonna get a small little plastic container like this, something that you can easily use. And once you're done, you don't have to worry about it. In this particular case, it's a Parmesan cheese container. And then again, use some very clean rags and to apply this. And basically we're going to want to go with the same rules apply. We're going to want to put it on and then start wiping it on with the grain. So we always kind of want to do with the grain. So in this particular instance, I'll start with the top and then work my way around. As far as the prep area, you want to make sure that this is one and done. You want to basically put this stuff on each surface, rub it so that it basically covers it, but it doesn't leave any extra. You don't want any large quantities of this stuff. You just want to put it on lightly, a light coat, and that's really all you need. And make sure that you kind of prep the area, because what you're going to do is you're going to finish it, and then you're going to put it back, and you're going to step out of the area for at least 24 hours. So you want to make sure that you've already kind of prepped the area that you're going to keep them in, so that you don't create a lot of dust. You don't want to be, because they're going to be sticky for a while, and you don't want any dust to get on them. So it takes a few hours to dry to the touch, and a good 24 or 48 hours to really harden. So, okay. So I'm going to start now, and we will put the first coat on the top. Like I said, just like with the oil, you just apply it liberally at first, and then you come back and you wipe it off. And you just leave that obviously covered area with enough of the stuff that it creates that finish that you want. But it's actually a pretty thin coating in the scheme of things. So you don't want any buildup, you don't want any extra drips, you don't want any, you want it to be fairly thin and even. Even is the key. Okay, so that's really about it. We'll just do all the sides like that, and then we will let it dry, and I will catch you up once it's dry on the next steps. Hi, welcome back. We are finished now with the woodworking part of this project. These cabinets have been sanded, lots and lots of sanding. Probably about 8 hours of sanding total, maybe even more. And then we oiled them, and then we put a layer of the Danish oil, which is a mixture of poly and oil. And that actually dried to a very nice, tough surface, but not shiny surface. So it's definitely a finished surface, but it's not a shiny, reflective surface. So it's beautiful. They're beautiful. I don't know if you can see them very well, but they're in really nice condition now. just what I wanted. There's a couple of things that I wanted to mention from the prior video. The one thing is, I can't stress enough, when you're applying oils or any kind of finish at all, you always want to work with the grain. It's absolutely, positively something that I can't stress enough. When you don't do it, if you do it the wrong way, you'll see it. And I do have one side of this speaker here that has a vertical line down against the grain, and the reason is because I applied the oil on that side vertically first, not thinking, and then I went with the grain. So unfortunately, there's really no way to get rid of that other than completely sanding it down, which I'm not going to do. So, so it's not terribly noticeable, but it is something that I notice, and you know. So this is an amateur job. So there you go. That's one thing. There's one mistake I made. Well, the other thing that I was going to mention is, before you do any finishing on these things, you have to do what you did after you sanded it. Use that tack cloth. Tack cloth in between every coat. You let it dry, you do the tack cloth, you apply the next coat. You let it dry, you do the tack cloth, you apply the next coat. I let the oil dry on here for 4 days, and then I tapped them really well, and then I applied the final finish. And it just, you know, you let it sit for 4 days, and it's going to, you know, pick up the dust of the area that you're in, and you know, so you don't want any of that to be stuck in the final finish. So you definitely want to do that. So here they are. They're ready now to be assembled, and we will start doing that right now. Okay, so here is the component part of the install. Here's our lovely speaker that's been finished fully, and we are ready to go on it. So now we're going to install the different speaker component pieces. All right, so let's begin by this monster. That is a 15-inch clip speaker that is original to the speaker, and it is in lovely shape. There's no problems, there's no cracks, there's no dry aging. The surrounds are in perfect condition, and they are good to be reinstalled, basically. Now, this is one big ass speaker. Sorry for the language, folks, but it's a heavy 15-inch woofer driver, and it's loaded in an interesting way, and I'll get to that in a second. All right, so the next piece of this puzzle is this guy. This is a mid-range horn driver that fits in the cabinet, and it is about 25 inches long, and it's a compression driver that basically blows into a horn, which makes your mid-range sound. Again, very desirable for, you know, for people who are really fond of audio. They consider themselves audiophiles. That is a lovely, lovely thing. People fight for that kind of stuff. So it is a massive piece of equipment, but it is completely original, 1976. This is cast steel, and it is a lovely, lovely thing. This is a tweeter, not original. The tweeter itself, the original tweeters are fine for most people most of the time. However, I find that the tweeters and the clip speakers are a little bright, and they sound a little bit tinny. And even in the Scalas here, I appreciated, you know, the mid-range and, you know, the woofer, but the tweeter was just a little bit too bright for me. So how I solved that was I purchased these new tweeters. These are brand new. from Crite speakers. They're the DE120s. And along with a new crossover network, which I will show you in a second, that will solve all those problems and will be just lovely. All right, so moving right along, we're going to go over to the other side of the workbench here. These beautiful pieces of work here are crossover networks. This is basically what tells the signal that this part of the sound needs to go to the woofer, and this part of the sound needs to go to the mid-range, and so forth, right? So just to kind of compare, these are new. Just, again, purchase at Crite Speakers. And then this guy here is the original, the old one. And you can just tell it's just old. These are oil-filled. These are ancient technology, no longer applies. They can do a much better job now with the equipment on this new board. Can do a much better job of separating out the music for the components necessary. So there you go. We got the new crossover networks. We got the new tweeter. We got the original mid-ranges. And we have the original woofer. Ooh, isn't that pretty? Okay, now we're seeing at a different angle. You recognize the front, and what we're doing is we're looking at the bottom now. So that big 15-inch woofer, it goes right in there, and it screws into the wood, and you see that slot that's kind of there. That's the only part where the sound goes through, okay? And what happens then is it's pushed around, the sound is, through these little grooves and then out this way. And that creates a horn effect. It's a horn. It's technically a horn. So that's basically how that works. So we're going to take that speaker and we're going to screw it in that hole right now. Okay, so before I do that, of course, I need to make sure that all of my connecting hardware is accounted for and is ready to go and is clean. As you can see, this little guy right here is probably has a little bit of grime on it, some dirt, and the leads are a little, kind of off color. When I unscrew those, obviously they'll be a little cleaner. But what I want to do is I want to use some stuff like this on it. This is deoxit, and it's a oxidizing cleaner, and it removes the oxidation and improves the connections of any electronics. And so this is like a little bit of an oil cleansing stuff, and so that's what I use to do that. And then also I'll take the leads themselves and just kind of put them on the grinder for a second, and so that we can get rid of the old yuck and get shiny new. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. I will get a screwdriver with my trusty tools, and we will undo these little screws so that we can get the little leads out. Okay, and then I will go ahead and put the little deoxit right on there. And you kind of want to get it around there. It's got a little lead on it so it can kind of direct it. And then you just let it sit for a few minutes, and then you go back to it. And sometimes I'll use a toothbrush, an old toothbrush or something like that, and kind of clean up those leads. And at this point, I'll do the grinding part. Okay, so we've cleaned up these leads pretty well, or we've cleaned up this little block pretty well. You want to notice that there's a red and a black. That's important for later when you're hooking up wires. You want to make sure that they're right. And then just with a little bit of elbow grease, you clean those up. And then, like I said, I use the grinder to clean up the leads. And you can see that they're, obviously much better. You got more raw metal exposed, and that's exactly what you need. You need that raw metal exposed. So just a couple of seconds on the grinder, and that cleans off all of the oxidization that you would see with these leads, and they're going to be just good to go. So now I got a whole nother set to do. There's the side-by-side comparison. You can see pretty much night and day what we're dealing with. So, okay. Okay, so we got both leads cleaned, grinded, ready to go. And these blocks are just emblematic of all the different little connectors that you're going to have in the speakers like these. Sometimes they're, sometimes they're like this. Sometimes they look quite a bit different. Sometimes they're soldered on inside a speaker. Sometimes they're not. So in either case, you kind of have to deal with whatever the situation is. But let me just talk a little bit about polarity. Polarity is the plus and minus of a battery. It's and in speakers, it's indicated by black and red. Now you can see that you always want to keep that going throughout the entire speaker, and even outside the speaker. Here is a speaker wire, and this is just a typical speaker wire, a 16 gauge, which is plenty big for these, for any situation. Don't let the guys at Best Buy sell you 14, 10, 9 gauge wire. That's just a waste of money. You can, the way electricity works, the longer the run, the thicker it has to be. So if you're running it, a couple 100 yards, sure. Then you can use 12 gauge, 10 gauge, whatever. But if you're just doing it inside a house, 16 gauge is plenty. And this also has polarity. On the back of your receiver or amplifier, you'll see a plus and a negative, or a red and a black. And in this case, all speaker wires have some kind of indication of what you're dealing with. This particular one has a black side and then no color at all on this side. That's what we're going to use for the red. Other speaker wire, a lot of people will use lamp cord as a speaker wire. And lamp cord, and I don't have an example right off the top here, but lamp cord is a little different. It has grooves on one side and it has no grooves on the other. And that's just to indicate that one could be positive, one could be negative. And it doesn't really matter what color you assign it to it. Just make sure that you're doing it the same throughout. So plus always goes to plus, always goes to plus, all the way through. Okay? So that's what polarity is. Super important. You don't want to have your speakers misfiring because you're in a polarity situation. All right. Okay, so we're done with one. Not done, almost done. We got all of the woofer, the mid-range, and the tweeter. You can see it back there. All in, screwed in. And then there's the crossover network. And now we just make our final connections to the crossover network for the different various leads that you need to do. Funny thing is, one thing is you need 4 screwdrivers, 4 different types of screwdrivers to do this job. That's so stupid. I know, they all should be the same. Second thing is, I don't know if you can see up in there, but that damn tweeter has the strongest magnet. So trying to get to those screws without getting your screwdriver is kind of hard. So we're going to do our final connection now using the smaller screwdriver, and we'll go to the next one. Okay, so now we have all the wires connected to the crossover network. So the tweeters, the squawker, or the mid-range, And then of course the woofer, the driver, and these are for when you hook up the speaker wires to the thing. So this is right now banana plug accepts banana plugs, but we can remove them and we can just hit the raw screw with the wire. And that will be just fine for testing them out. So there she is. It is completely assembled, and now off to the next one. Okay, so there you have it. We are completed. The speakers have been assembled, tested. We got speaker wires hooked up to the receiver, amplifier, playing a little In Excess for you folks. That's Suicide Blonde, late 80s hit. And gosh, it's been a real long process, but it's been a fun one. So now they go on the auction block for sale, and I will be sad to get rid of them because they are just beautiful speakers and they sound fantastic. So I'm a little sad about that, but also happy that they're done and they look beautiful, and whoever buys them will have a lovely set of speakers. They just have to have a damn big room. So I appreciate you all watching Gary's Garage, and this has been a fun project, and I hope you return for the next project, which we don't know what that is yet. So thanks a lot for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll do a little bit more of that Suicide Blonde. Here we go.